Imagine you are standing inside a beautiful church in Europe. The year is 1740 and you have come with your family. You look up and see high arches with giant bells at the top that ring out at special times. Around you are beautiful stained glass windows and statues of old popes and saints. The building is the most beautiful place you have ever been in, especially since outside life is difficult and many people live in poor and dirty conditions. You are inside the Notre-Dame, one of the most famous churches in the world. You may have seen the news lately, the story about the tragic fire at Notre-Dame Cathedral. A cathedral is like a church, it's a place of worship, but it's much larger and grander. Recently, a fire burned much of the Notre-Dame Cathedral, causing its tall spire to collapse. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but a lot of damage was done. The Notre-Dame is a famous historic church in the heart of the city of Paris. It is one of the most recognizable buildings in France and in the world. When fire broke out at the cathedral in spring 2019, people all over the world were sad. But did you know that this is not the only time that the cathedral was almost destroyed? The Notre-Dame Cathedral was built many years ago, during the 10th century. At the time, Paris was the center of trade and power in Europe. Paris is located on the Seine River, which is in a good position to control goods that were traded throughout Europe along the river. As a result, the city grew very rich. While Paris grew to be a rich trading city, it also grew to be a spiritual center. Spiritual means holy or religious. A group of people started to worship a saint who had lived in the area named Saint Denis. The local story says that after he was martyred, they decided to build a small church to honor him. Martyred means when someone dies for their faith. The Bishop of Paris, Maurice de Sully, decided that he wanted to build an even nicer church in the heart of the city of Paris. He requested money from the government to do this, and then set forth to build an even more beautiful church. He wanted to build the new cathedral on the Île de la Cité, or City Island in English. This is a small island that sits in the middle of the Seine River in Paris. There were many houses on the island at the time that formed a cramped medieval neighborhood. There were also 2 churches that already sat there in the side of what was once a pagan temple. Sully and his team had to get permission to demolish the older buildings in order to build the cathedral he envisioned. To demolish means to crush and destroy something. The first stone on the Notre-Dame Cathedral was laid in 1163. Sully did not realize it at the time, but it would take his entire life, plus another 150 years before the cathedral was finished. Every designer and builder working on the cathedral over the years continued to make the building more fancy and ornate. Once the cathedral was finished and people started using it regularly, Notre Dame became a part of Paris life. It was visible from many parts of the city as its location is very central. During the Middle Ages, the Notre Dame was the site of an annual celebration called the Feast of Fools. During this celebration, poor people were loud and rowdy. They pretended to be popes or archbishops in the church, and they laughed and made fun of the lives of rich clergymen. When the Notre Dame wasn't hosting a Feast of Fools, it also became a place that people came to study and discuss important topics. It became the center of intellectual life in France at the time. Intellectual means to be creative and learn and think about new things. As the reputation of the school at Notre Dame grew, people from all over Europe started to come to Paris to study there. The early cathedral also served as a courthouse. A courthouse is a place where trials take place and a judge determines if someone accused of a crime is innocent or guilty. In the 1780s, poor people in France started to revolt against the rich and powerful people who controlled their lives. To revolt means to rebel, sometimes with violence. During the French Revolution, people saw churches and the royals as symbols of power. They broke into the Notre Dame Cathedral and stole things from the church. They also broke statues and other things inside the church. Only one very large bell, the Emmanuel bell, survived without being destroyed. The poor French people were trying to let the religious and royal leaders know that they were not in charge of them anymore. After the French Revolution ended, the Notre-Dame Cathedral went back to being a functioning church. However, it was not the beautiful building it had once been. Its glass windows had been shattered, and everything inside had been stolen or destroyed. Birds flew in and out of the cathedral and built nests high up in the ceiling. Have you ever heard of a story called The Hunchback of Notre Dom? It was around this time in Paris that the book was written by a French writer named Victor Hugo. He imagined a hunchbacked man named Quasimodo living inside the old broken-down cathedral. The book became very popular throughout France. As a result, there was new interest in the cathedral, and people started wanting to fix it up and make it beautiful again. The Notre-Dame Cathedral was restored in the 1800s by the new Emperor of France, Napoleon Bonaparte. For almost 25 years, he led the efforts to restore the cathedral to its former beauty. To restore means to bring back or improve. There were new windows and statues built, including new gargoyle statues on the stone walls outside, which are very famous today. As Paris grew wealthy again in the 19th century, the city worked to generally make itself more beautiful. The old houses and other buildings around the Notre-Dame on the Ile de la Cité were torn down to make big open boulevards for people to walk. It is now one of the most beloved tourist attractions in Europe. Artists flocked to Paris over the past 200 years, and many have painted pictures of the Notre-Dame. These include famous artists such as Henri Matisse and Pablo Picasso. As the smoke clears from the Notre-Dame fire this spring, the extent of the damage is becoming known. There have already been efforts made to raise money to restore the building and rebuild the spire so that the Notre-Dame can become its beautiful self again. People from all over the world are donating money, which some have estimated at $1 billion, so that the building can live on and people can visit it when they come to Paris. Would you like to visit the Notre-Dame one day? If you go to Paris, you'll be able to take a trip to the Ile de la Cité. Perhaps by that time the Notre-Dame will be fully restored, and you will be able to see what it looked like before the fire. And when you do, you will know the history of this beautiful monument in France. Salut!